evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Mahoning Drive-In Theater, the largest single-screen drive-in in the United States. We're certainly glad you could be with us this evening, and don't forget the concession stand is open with all kinds of great things to eat and drink.
89.3 Mahoning Drive-In Radio, your old friend Virgil back once again for another exciting episode of the podcast. As you guys know, the only podcast dedicated to the love and revival of our beloved drive-in culture. Joined as always by my co-host and general manager extraordinaire, Mark. Say hello, Mark.
Hello.
And of course, King Jeff in the house. Say hello, Jeff.
Hi, everybody.
We're really, really excited about our guest tonight, or for him, it will be this morning, being that he's coming all the way from Dandenong, Australia, the owner, manager, and director, David Kilderry. Welcome, my friend.
G'day, everyone. Pleasure to be here.
We are over the moon to have you on because, you know, in doing the launch of this podcast, the whole point of it was to shine a light on the drive-ins across America. And we've been so blessed to be able to bring in so many key people, key companies across the board when it comes to the American drive-in culture, which is synonymous with the drive-in culture. But Australia has its own fresh drive-in culture, their own car culture, their own movie culture that is tied in. And seemingly, you guys are having amazing success there.
Yeah, well, it's that was true until COVID. Unlike a lot of you guys, we have different states here in Australia as well, and the different states had different regulations. Some states in Australia allowed the drive-in theatres to remain open all during COVID, but here in the state of Victoria where we are, we were closed for a total of 40 weeks where we could not operate at all. So that was not good.
Yeah. Well, and your guys' history and story, which we really want to go into, is rich as well. You guys are one of the oldest drive-ins in Australia, and as it stands, the largest, correct?
Yeah, that's right. Our drive-in theatre goes all the way back until the 1950s, and over the years it was a single-screen drive-in, and when we took it over, it was derelict, used as a flea market only. We reopened it over 20 years ago.
Now, the thing that I love about reading about you guys is you predate television in Australia. So the popularity of drive-ins pre-television was just massive.
Yeah, that's right. Australia, with many things, it sort of sat back and had a look what was going on in the rest of the world before they jumped into television, which I believe the UK even trialled during World War II. And then the US, of course, it boomed in the late 40s and 50s. So Australia didn't introduce television until the mid-1950s. So the first drive-in theatres here opened without that competition from television. But yeah. Like in the US, the boom time of the drive-ins here was the late 50s and right through the 60s when we did have television. And it was really the only growth area in the cinema industry. As we know, city, downtown theatres were closing, suburban and country town, small town theatres were closing, but drive-ins were opening.
We were talking about your history and our history with drive-ins and the fact that it really is something that burrows into your heart when you're young, and it has kind of driven us to where we are, this love of movies, the love of the drive-in specifically. But yours is kind of magical. Can you tell us a little bit about your upbringing and what led you to love drive-ins?
Well, as a kid, our parents took us to the drive-in, which was fantastic. One of the first movies I can remember was Disney's Bedknobs and Broomsticks in the early 1970s.
Yes.
What I recall was because they were switching prints between suburban drive-in theatres, every second week you got the main feature as the second show and you had to sit through a support feature first. So I remember struggling to stay awake through some boring movie that was first that I couldn't even remember. And then during Bedknobs and Broomsticks, I could hardly stay awake for that. So we were in our family Volkswagen, which the cars got larger as our family got larger. But initially it was a Volkswagen Beetle, a Bug. So there wasn't a lot of room in that car. for the drive-in, but we later got larger cars. But I can remember that. And in 1974, our parents built a second story on our home for some extra bedrooms, because there was 4 kids by this time.
Right.
And when they built one of the bedrooms upstairs, one of them looked over our backyard, the play area in the backyard, and the other one looked out over across the suburb, and you could actually see a drive-in screen, and that's the bedroom that I chose. So it wasn't across the road; it was like half a mile away, but you could still clearly see the drive-in screen.
Yeah, get those binoculars out.
Absolutely, I had binoculars there, and I'm not sure about you guys, but by the mid-1970s at Australian drive-ins, it was all R-rated sex romps. So you'd have the Poseidon Adventure one week, and the next week you'd have some R-rated sex double
movie. Yeah.
So it was a real education. So that was my introduction from an early age.
And talk about destined. I mean, that story is just magical. I tell the story all the time that I've been talking about running a drive-in since I was 13, and it really has a magical lore about it. But the fact that you lived the dream by overlooking a drive-in, it's in your blood.
Yeah, look, absolutely. And then a few years later, my father had some old films in cans in the garage, and he would never let me touch them. And I didn't understand about nitrate film and why it was dangerous. But one day, again, probably I was a teenager, he finally let me open the cans of film, and it's 35mm film, and I could see the images on the film, and that was it. The two things came together. So even while I was in high school, I started working part-time as an assistant projectionist at a theatre that wasn't far away, and then became a qualified projectionist. You actually had to study, go to like a college to study to be a projectionist in the state of Victoria, which was good. So before long I was working in downtown theatres, drive-in theatres, suburban theatres, and my hobby and my career have always been the one thing.
Well, you just touched our heart, because not only, do we represent the drive-in culture, we represent the preservation of 35mm and its love. So you really were born and bred working with 35mm.
Oh, yeah, not only that, I've been collecting film on all formats for over 40 years, and I have about 4,000 reels of film here in my collection.
Well, so we just became best friends. So why don't you give people listening a visual as far as the layout of your drive-in? Are you guys kind of in a rural setting? Are you built out around in a city?
Well, when our drive-in was first built in 1956, it was in an area, Dandenong, which is a large industrial area. And when right near our drive-in theatre, there was an International Harvester truck plant, there was a Heinz food processing plant, and Australia's largest General Motors vehicle plant. So when they built those 3 plants in the 1950s, they built suburban homes for people to live, and that's when the entertainment came, and that's why our drive-in theatre was built.
Yeah.
And you see aerial photographs from back in the 50s, and you can see those 3 plants, and you can see our drive-in theatre and not much else. But if you look at it today, we're right in the middle of suburbia, surrounded by massive warehouses and factories. And in fact, that's what is pushing us out. We have actually sold the land, my brother and myself, and we will close in the near future.
What?
The costs of running a drive-in theatre where we are, our property taxes alone, I hope you guys are sitting down.
Oh, gee.
Our property taxes alone are now over $1,000 per day.
Over $1,000 a day.
Over $1,000 a day, and it will go up in the next year, we think, to almost $500,000 per year. So there's been a land boom because we've got an Amazon warehouse just near us. We have these massive factory warehouses all around us, and we've got this lonely little drive-in sitting in the middle of all of this. And we've held on as long as we can. If our location was 15 miles further away, it would not be a problem. But the last few years, we just have really looked at how we can survive, and we might be able to in another location, but not in this one, unfortunately.
Yeah. Well, you guys have such a following and such love that the idea of continuing that and rebuilding that experience elsewhere, is that something that's in your head?
Yeah, look, my brother and I, who's the co-owner of the Lunar Drive-In, we've looked at all of those options. There's one or two former drive-in theatres that have closed and the screen is gone that may be options, but there's the possibility of even building a brand new one.
Yeah.
So, look, we have looked at that. We can't make any announcements. Obviously, the costs involved are massive, but it's a real problem. We're in a fantastic location for our customers, but that brings such high costs. We have about 450,000 customers a year, so it's a busy drive-in theatre, but the costs still higher than the revenue we receive. Like last year was just break even. This year we'll make a loss, and if we stay on till next year, we will start going backwards big time.
Right, man. Well, we were threatened in 2021, last year, almost bought out by a solar panel farm, and I saw that. Yeah. And we were at that crossroads where, if that had gone through, we really would have had to put our heads together on how we would continue the tradition of what the Mahoning Drive-In Theater stands for and what the culture stands for. And luckily, we didn't have to go that route. But our heart is truly with you. I mean, this is the perfect transition into your revival of this, at the time, dead theater. It was closed for a while, and then you guys came in early 2000s?
Yeah, it was run by a large theatre chain here in Australia, who I used to work for and who I actually supervised their drive-ins, believe it or not. Wow. So I got to play drive-in with someone else's money for many years, and that's how I learned what works and what doesn't work. But they had closed it in the 80s, and it had sat there as a flea market. And we approached the owners, as many others had as well. But because I knew the owners, because of my relationship with them in leasing other drive-in theatres to them for this company I worked for their flea markets, we had a relationship. So they trusted my brother and myself. And initially we leased the land from them, and then we purchased the drive-in from them later on. Yeah. And so having that background and knowledge was very important. I feel it's very tough for someone coming in. As you guys know, a lot of people want to run drive-in theatres, but they don't know how, and they don't have the experience. And you need everything going for you. Otherwise, it's very difficult. I'm not saying it's impossible for people coming from outside. You can get by, but having that experience, I feel, has always been important for us.
For sure. And every single owner that we talk to has the same exact quote. You don't get in this for the money. You get in it for the community. And what you guys have provided that community for over 20 years has been, nothing but magic.
It's been one of our most difficult decisions, because the land is worth a lot of money, and that's why it attracts high property taxes. But that doesn't help us in our day-to-day trading. We would stay if we could, but we don't want to risk, our families' homes and our livelihoods by, we've put our houses on the line a few times over the years, but there's always been a clear pathway to better trading and improving, building extra screens, building our new snack bar. There was always a way forward. But this time we're sort of a little concerned. Hollywood has changed a little. The customers have changed a little. There's a lot staying home with streaming as well. It only takes a 10% change for your profit to disappear. And that's what we've been noticing. So, it's a tough decision.
Yeah, and it's one of those things. Even starting the podcast, it was really about shining a light on the drive-in culture and the news of the drive-ins. And 9 times out of 10, it was, hey, this drive-in's closing. This person had to make a hard decision. It's just the nature of the beast. We're at that crossroads that the VCR and cable brought, were there
Yes.
again with streaming and what
Yeah.
COVID brought to Hollywood.
In Australia, cable TV did not come until later in the 1980s, but the VCR in Australia had such a huge uptake in the early 1980s. One of the companies I worked for, they spent $1 million in 1983 twinning one of their good drive-in theatres. Updated snack bar, new projection building, brand new screens, 600 cars. It did not even last 12 months. That's the effect the VCR had so fast here. So we lost, a couple of hundred drive-ins in an 18-month period because of that in 1984.
Wow. I mean, that's the shift in culture, You really feel the impact, and people do think, oh, the drive-in has an endless appeal, but the cost of running a drive-in movie theater, it's enormous, the land cost alone, but what you're paying to bring in these movies, what you're putting out to the studios, relying on the concessions, it is an endless dance,
Yeah, and look, I'm the first to say we had some very good years, like, from 2010 all the way up to 2018, 2019, we did very well. But, there's been some turmoil in the world since that time. And I'm not just blaming the pandemic or COVID, but it's forced some shifts and things have changed. And, you only need a few changes to that equation to go from a business that's very profitable to one that's barely break even.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, why don't you give people a little bit of a layout of the drive-in? From the overhead aerial, we could kind of get an idea of where the original screen was. Yeah. And it looks like you guys have multiple snack bars.
Yeah. Well, the original drive-in theatre, think of a great big square piece of land, one big square block. And the original screen was placed in one corner, and the ramps, the parking area went all the way, essentially filled up that whole area. And right from the start, our drive-in theatre had a main central snack bar, but it also had a second smaller one off to the side. And where they sold fish grills, they had different types of, they sold steak dinners, they had, proper sit-down meals, not just takeout type food. So that ran for a lot of years. Then when it was purchased by the large drive-in circuit, Village Drive-Ins, they expanded the main central building, so that snack bar became larger. But when we took it on, we found that building was becoming too small. We only had 4 or 5 service points. So we built a brand new one behind that, a much larger building with 10 customer service points, much larger kitchen with 6 fryers, 2 grills, pizza oven. So we added all that. And with the screens, with the layouts, we added our second. We first of all, the originals, when a big cinema company closes a drive-in in Australia, the first thing they do is cut the screens down so no one else can operate it. Yeah. But so we had to rebuild. We had to rebuild the first screen. Then we built a second screen in the opposite corner, and then we added the third screen in another corner and the fourth screen in another corner. So our big square now has a screen in each corner. The snack bar is basically in the middle, and the parking goes from the screen back to the snack bar. So behind every row, behind each of those theatres is a central snack bar, which, if you were doing it from scratch, if you were doing a new design, you'd probably do it like that anyway. We've had a few compromises because of existing infrastructure, but we've tried to make it work as best we can.
Yeah, that is amazing.
Yeah.
With having all 4 screens, I'm curious, one box office, multiple box offices? How do you...
Well, we had one box office that had 2 serving windows. So we used to use a ticket seller and a car hop. So we would sell, one car would come up to the window and the ticket seller would sell that car. But in the meantime, a car hop would go to the second or third car, get their order, go to the ticket seller and go back to the car. But we found as we got busier that was inefficient. So we added a third ticket box. So then we had 3 lanes coming in, but again, we got busier and we added another ticket box. So now we have 5 entry lanes with 5 ticket box serving windows, and we don't use the car hops because once we went to computer ticketing, online booking system, you can purchase a ticket at the box office, that's fine. But we find about 50% purchase online via our website, and they just come up with their phone. We just scan the code on the phone, and so that's a fast transaction. Yeah. So we now get the cars off the highway. We're actually located on a major highway, probably about 60,000 cars a day pass us now. So to get those cars lining up for the drive-in off the highway, we used to block it up almost 3/4 of a mile. So it was a problem on busy nights. So now we don't have the police hassling us anymore. We've got them off the highway.
Could you imagine? Unbelievable. Yeah, it's one of those things like, so working people through the gate seems like you guys upgraded. Now working them through what it looked like was kind of a corral system to which screen they're going to go to. Do you have multiple employees all along that run directing people, or is it all signage?
It's all signage on the entry. It's all signage, but because we stopped running double features about 10 years ago, and now we're in daylight saving here at the moment, so we can't start till nearly 9 o'clock, but we'll have our 4 9 o'clock sessions, one single feature, and then we kick all them out. We get rid of those customers. Luckily, we have a back exit gate as well, and then we bring in our 11 o'clock sessions. That's when it's busy, that's when we need staff, because we will open the rear exit gate when it's appropriate, when we need to get them out onto we've got a side road, which is very, very convenient for us, so we can bring cars in through the front and bring them out the back, and that gives a very quick turnover. And just mentioning double features, they were always a part of drive-in theatres in Australia, but we noticed about 12 years ago that so few, particularly on the weeknights, were staying for the support feature. And so we started adding some first release films at the later session time, and we found there was an audience. You know, we've got people, we're lucky, we can run a session at 11:30 p.m. at night and still get, 150 cars for it. So it's worth doing.
Yeah. Oh, that's a great model.
So things have evolved and changed even over our 20-year period.
Yeah, and you got to kind of dodge and weave with the way that the culture and the really Hollywood is changing.
Oh yeah, for sure.
We went the same route with our Sundays and our Tuesdays. You know, we pushed our Sunday double features for a good couple years, and after a while, it was like there's too many people who need to get home. We're losing them all for a second, and it's always a sacrifice losing your intermission. But you figured it out. You kind of get a bite at both apples by bringing in 2 shows.
Yeah, correct. You get two bites at the pre-show concession audience. That's right. We lost nothing. Our intermissions were busy, but people still, we find by 11 o'clock at night, they're hungry. They want to eat again. They want a snack. They want to drink. So, yeah.
Oh, that's amazing. That's so amazing. So you told us a little bit about your history and your past working in the theater industry. What was the story as far as when you and your brother came in and purchased the land? Did that take a lot of convincing? Was it an insane financial undertaking to come in on? I mean, I can only imagine. It's the dream everybody wants, but there's so many hurdles to get to it.
Yeah, look, like you guys, I thought very early on as a teenager that I would love to own my own theatre or drive-in, indoor theatre or drive-in. But as the years went by, I saw that the focus was taken off drive-ins in Australia when the multiplexes came in, and the big companies gradually sold them off. Some of the smaller companies struggled. And I'll tell you a story. I first visited the US in 1989. And I was driving on a freeway in Los Angeles, and I saw a drive-in screen. So I thought, I was going to have a look at drive-ins anyway, but I saw one on like my second day. Yeah, so I got off at the exit, and as I got closer, I saw a second screen, a third screen, a fourth screen. By the time I got close, it was the Stadium Drive-In run by Century Theatres. Yes. They're now Westwind. Yep. Stadium Drive-In in Orange County, and it had 8 screens. So I'd never seen a drive-in with more than 2 screens. So I went back that night. They were running first release films, the snack bar was tidy, it was clean, and our drive-ins had sort of fallen away, over the years. So I thought, wow, and I looked at the audience, it was a great young audience there, and I thought, wow, if we could replicate this in Australia, there might be a chance to bring some drive-ins back. And through the 1990s, the drive-ins that did stay open in Australia did see a resurgence, and we were lucky. We did take a risk. We took a lease on the land initially, but had to spend a lot of money on rebuilding the drive-in. We spent hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Oh, I could imagine. The place is gorgeous.
We sold our houses. My brother had a house. He sold it. My wife and I sold our house. But one of the best things we ever did was in our lease, we actually put in a clause that we would get first right of refusal on the land. So if it was going to be sold out from under us, at least we'd have a chance. We wouldn't just get a eviction notice.
Right.
So when the company that owned the land wanted to sell it, we'd been saving up a large deposit, and it came just at the right time where we could just afford it. So again, we put our houses on the line, and we had a former business as well. My brother and I had that. We sold that off, and we were able to buy it, and that was the best thing we did, because then we could be the masters of our own destiny. So
that's the dream, like you said, you worked for so many different owners, and you were the guy that they had to, push into place, and to be the guy that could see a vision through, especially one that had the experience and the know-how. It really does seem like a destined placement.
Yeah, look, we wanted to build a new snack bar and add some more infrastructure, but we got to the point we didn't want to spend any more money on a land that we were leasing. And to be honest, our lease had just gone to a month to month, because the company that owned it were deciding what they were going to do. It was a lot of money at the time, but in hindsight, it was a good decision to make. It was worth the sacrifice to do.
Oh, absolutely. And I gotta say it. I mean, even though you guys are faced with a hard decision, the Lunar is legendary, and
thank you.
People do talk about the beauty of what you guys have done with that property and the revival and the drive. I mean, drawing almost 500,000 people each year that's nothing to shake a stick at.
No, well, that's what's disappointing about it. It sounds fantastic numbers, but the numbers, we need a lot of. We have 62 staff. So some of them are full-time, most of them are part-time or casual workers, as we call them, that do just 2 or 3 shifts a week. But we need those numbers to serve the food, to sell the tickets, to operate the drive-in theatre. And, I don't begrudge paying our staff. They're good staff, almost all of them. We've always had very good staff, and, they deserve to earn, a decent wage. But, you pay property taxes, you pay film hire, you pay, rising costs for your food, you add all those costs up. And even with our large numbers, as I said, it's barely break even at the moment.
Yeah, you get buried quick.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we do normally ask people about the layout of their concession stand. I heard you say about adding the stations. Do you guys, a big thing in America drive-ins are the self-serve, where you kind of grab and go as you walk the line. Are you guys a order, prepare type of business?
Yeah, we were, the drive-in theatres here and many of the indoor theatres, they were counter service. Then during the 60s, 70s, 80s, they went to self-service, and our drive-in became a self-service where you would walk along the counter, you would choose your food, come to the cash point and make your purchase. But what we found, we sell a lot of combos where, instead of just buying a cheeseburger, for example, you get a cheeseburger, fries and a drink, all in a price that is lower than if you bought those items individually. And with the combos, we found our customers could not figure them out by themselves. It was a disaster. They were choosing a cheeseburger with a hot dog and a drink and wanted a combo, and there was no such combo as that.
Right, so, replacement this, that.
Yeah, exactly. So it was tough. So we got rid of the self-serve. We went to counter service. So they come into our snack bar and they split into lines behind each sales point. And it gives them time to choose the combo, and we have them numbered. Combo 1 is our Lunar burger. That's our big burger. It's to tell you what's on it. It's like a cheeseburger, but it also has bacon, lettuce, tomato, onion, our special sauce. So it's a big
Come
burger.
on, yeah.
It's large. And that's our most popular burger. So we sell that with fries and a drink. And I think that combo's I think it's at $9.50, $10. Our price is a little bit higher than you guys, but
that's a steal still.
And we cook about 8 of those burgers at a time. So they're always in the bain marie, the warmers, so they're ready to go. Yep. So we sell like McDonald's were back in the 80s. You know, when you walked in and they just had Big Macs and quarter pounders always ready to go.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
That's what we do because we have the volume and our menu is quite simple. The only thing we don't cook to order is pizza, but we can do those pretty fast.
Right.
So, but everything else, we sell donuts at our drive-in. So they've always been a part of drive-ins in the southern areas of Australia where it's a bit cooler. So on a busy night, we'll sell 1,000 donuts.
Come on. That was going to be one of my questions is what?
We will sell 350 burgers. We'll sell 300 hot dogs and we'll sell 100 pizzas.
Come on.
We sell a lot of food.
You moved some food. That is something else. And that I know.
I should say that whilst my background is a projectionist in theatres, my brother's background is a fully qualified chef. So
doesn't hurt. Doesn't hurt in the biz.
It's where the two skills come together, and of course we both love cars. So
it's perfect, you know. Well, that was one of the things that's certainly on our minds is what is the differences between the American drive-in culture and the Australian drive-in culture, and really that boiling down to the food, you know. You guys offering donuts is certainly unique. Do you find your audience prefers a certain type of fare, or is it leaning more into what we think of as traditional drive-in fare?
Well, it's interesting. Australian food was probably more aligned with British or English food, which obviously, you know, the US and Australia sort of share that. We were both colonised by Britain. Right. And, you know, over time, with different waves of migration, your food sort of changes. And what the first drive-ins in Australia did was introduce American-style food like, yes, Australia, you could buy a hot dog in Australia before drive-in theatres, but every drive-in theatre started selling hot dogs.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, you could buy hamburgers. We had a lot of fish and chip shops, which are like, you know, little independent takeaways where you could buy either fish and chips or you could buy a burger. Well, drive-in theatres brought in these hamburgers as well. So, you know, it sort of popularised the American fast food culture, if you like. But then again, Australia does have some differences. As I mentioned, you know, the donuts were popular. We also sell a product called a dim sim, which is like a small Chinese spring roll, like a dim sum, a little. Yeah. So they're filled with meat and cabbage and vegetables. They're small. They're about 2 inches long, and they're deep fried. And we sell hundreds of those. And you can buy a dim sim in Australia at drive-in theatres and at normal takeaway stores. They're a popular food, and that's because Australia had a gold rush, and of course a lot of Chinese came to Australia and their foods were sort of taken up. And then we have, like you guys, we had waves of Italians in the 40s and 50s and 60s, and they bought pizza and pasta, and, you know, so we sell pizza. We don't sell other pasta. So whilst we have, there's lots of Mexican restaurants in Australia, but Mexican food has never been sold in drive-ins in Australia. Whereas I noticed particularly in Arizona and California, the driving menu is dominated by, you know, Tex-Mex or Mexican
tacos. Yeah,
tacos. That's right. We've never sold those products in drive-ins in Australia. So,
well, it goes both ways. You know, it really is interesting to us talking to owners from all over the country and now all over the world, and those differences. You know, what stands out? What's their big sellers? We talked to a woman last night from South Carolina, the Highway 21. And her big seller is her homemade funnel cakes. It's just
funnel cake.
People just go nuts for it. So you never know what's going to connect.
Well, that's interesting. That's, you know, it's sort of like a dessert or something you have after the main meal, funnel cake. Mm-hmm. Well, that's why our donuts are popular. You know, they have a burger, they have a drink, they have some fries, and then they come back, they're looking for something else, something sweet. And that's why our donuts are popular. So, yeah.
So if you can, talk a little bit about your patrons, your experience with the love of movies, and I guess specifically in your case, the drive-in experience?
Yeah, well, we run first release movies. We run all the main features, mostly American, but some British and some Australian films as well, which you guys probably wouldn't see as much.
Yeah.
We do run retro films. Every year we've run a series of classics. Twice a year we'd run big car shows. So you'd have, everything from muscle cars to hot rods, all coming in. And, we generally run American Graffiti or Back to the Future or something, something. Vanishing Point has been another popular one.
Love it.
I'm a big Mopar fan. So anytime I can get a Dodge or a Chrysler on screen, I will. And so we have that audience. During COVID, when we could open, we were opening and closing during 2020 and 2021. When there was a lack of Hollywood product, we'd run a lot of retros. We ran a lot of horror Dusk Till Dawn shows. Yep. We ran one which was Friday the 13th, A Nightmare on Elm Street, and the third one we would change to whatever other horror film the distributor had. And we sold out that Dusk Till Dawn 3 times in a row, and twice was during the rain. So they were keen to come out to the drive-in during COVID, and they were keen to see classic horror. So I love films of all genres. I like, classic comedies. I like action. I love, everything from Quentin Tarantino to Singing in the Rain. And it's amazing. We can run Grease and we'll always get an audience. And yet we thought we'd had requests for the Prince movie, Purple Rain. And after Prince passed away, we couldn't get a hold of the copy. They wouldn't let us run it. Finally, they let us run it. We promoted it. We got 15 cars only. So it's,
you never know. You never know. We run the Blues Brothers and we never get an audience for the Blues Brothers. Yet we run Dirty Dancing and we'll get 400 cars. So you never know where the fandom's going to fall. No, you just don't know. Look, we plan on running some more retros in the next few months. We're going to run one of my favorite teen movies of the 80s. We're going to run Say Anything, the John Cusack film. Oh, come on. Love it. Yeah, I've been looking for a 35mm print for years. I have it on 16mm film, but we'll run it on DCP. We can still run film. In fact, we were one of the few drive-ins that could run 70mm film if we wanted to. Yeah. Which was interesting. A lot of Australian drive-ins, maybe a quarter of Australian drive-ins were equipped for 70mm screenings. So during the 50s, 60s, 70s, we ran a lot of 70mm prints in drive-in theaters, whereas I've found in the US that's not so common. Not at all. And since you brought it up, I gotta ask, I saw the footage of you guys running the 35mm. I believe it was the Pearl system, correct? Or the Jewel system, right? Yes. And that you have the ability to run 70 and 35. Yeah, we've just kept one projector, which is a dual projector, 35 70mm projector. We've just kept one on screen 3 because we put Barco digital projectors in, and our projection building just wasn't large enough to have all of them in there. So we had to move the platter systems out. We kept one platter system, one projector, and the rest Barco digital 32B projectors. So. Right. So you guys still do have the 35 there? Yeah, we still have it there. We can still run it. I run more 35mm in my home theater than I do at the drive-in these days, but at least I can still run it. So. Oh, that's beautiful. That's beautiful. Yeah, that appeal of the 70mm at drive-ins never caught on here. And it's something we get asked all the time is, can you guys run 70mm? Can you run 70mm? And it's had, as you know, a resurgence with the now restriking of 70mm and choice 35mm titles. Yeah, correct. And look, just going back to the first part of the question, our audience is... they want to see action, they want to see comedy, and of course family films do very well. And we've noticed the mid-level comedies and action films have almost vanished, from theatre screens. So that's one thing that has affected our audience. I watched the trailer for the new Will Ferrell film, Strays. Yes, yeah.
that's the sort of film that will do well with our audience. We did very well. I can tell you, our top grossing films of all time are Jumanji, the second Jumanji film, Fast and Furious 7. We did very well with Frozen. We do very well with comedy, family. If those two things hit together and they're during our summer vacation period, like Jumanji was for us, our summer vacation is December, January, not like you guys in the other part of the year. So when a film like that is released near Christmas for us, we can run it on for 8 weeks and they just keep coming. So
that's just amazing. Yeah. Do you find working with a booker and booking titles that, as you said, wouldn't be available in America, do you get a draw for them? Are they a specific draw for you?
Yeah, we do, but we don't use a booker because I come from some of the major cinema companies. We were confident enough to deal with the studios.
My man, there we go.
So all the US studios all have offices here in Australia. They have, their outlets in Australia, whether it be, Universal or Paramount or Sony. They all have their offices here. Yeah. So we deal direct with them. And look, we consider that we know enough about the film and the deals to do a better deal than we could with a booker. Some of our competitors use bookers, and that's fine. But I've always just liked to do that myself.
Yeah, we find that's been our model since we went retro in 2014, and
you got to seek out the prints that you want, and it takes a lot of work, as you
and
know,
it's personal too. I find that being on a first name basis with your studio rep goes a long way.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Well, I gotta ask, because you mentioned the 35 millimeter collection. We source from all the major studios, but we also work with a ton of private collectors, including Quentin Tarantino. Do you loan out your prints? Is this a private source? Do you have people who come with requests?
Yes, I do. I don't loan to every request, but if I know, because often the prints will be going interstate across the country, if I know that they're going with a trusted courier, and there are still a few small businesses that work as film couriers, taking stuff between the cities, there's a few retro houses that still use these places. So if I know the courier, I trust the transport, in other words, and I know that they have a qualified projectionist, I will loan my prints, and of course they pay the fee to the studio. It's all done correctly. If it's a film from 20th Century Fox and I loan them a Fox film, they will pay the correct dues, the correct film hire to 20th Century Fox. Every company will do that, all the major studios in Australia except Disney. Disney will not do it.
Yeah, that's what we found.
Strange about that, yeah. So that's fine. They may change their mind as time gets on. But, 15 years ago, I would never have loaned a print because it was different back then. You were deemed as being a film pirate if you owned film. That's right.
Don't even mention my name.
We were just collectors, It's I was buying from guys from the big reel in the 80s and 90s, and they were all collectors, the guys that we knew, and they were preserving prints. Not one of them were pirating prints. So, in the finish, I think the studios have come to recognise that we've been a big benefit to them. And I won't mention specifics, but I sold a 35 millimeter print on eBay about 3-4 years ago. And it sold for roughly $1,000. And then when they sent me an address to send it to, it was to one of the major Hollywood studios.
Wow.
So I died. I thought I'd been set up, but they explained that they wanted to view this print. I won't mention the film or the studio. The guy explained to me that, yes, I said, don't you have the original negative? They said, yes, they do. But to run off a brand new print in a lab would cost them thousands of dollars, where they could just go on eBay and buy the same print from me for, a tenth of the price. And I was shocked. So since that time, I've sold a number of prints to places like the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences have purchased from me. Some of my films have ended up in the US Library of Congress. And with the Australian equivalent here, our National Film and Sound Archive, I deal with them. So I'd like to think that we've come out of the closet. We're no longer underground, and we're doing our best to work in the mainstream with our collections.
You guys are doing God's work. Every single collector that we work with, it's you guys are the preservation source. It's unfortunate, but the studios don't all have that like-mindedness where they see the value in 35 millimeter. And to have people across the world like yourself that are, preserving these for future screenings and experiences, it's something you can't put a price on.
Yeah, correct. And look, as I mentioned, I'm not a hoarder. I don't keep, if I buy a film collection, which is what I prefer to do, a collector becomes old or unfortunately passes on, like many of them have. I prefer to purchase the whole collection. I'm always up front. I say, look, I will keep about a third of these films for my own collection. Yep. I will trade about a third of them to other collectors that I know that are after these, horror films. I've got 20 guys I can call, and they're all horror films. Sure. And the others, if I can't find a good home for them, and after I watch them once, I'm not saying I don't enjoy them, but I think I'll probably never run this film again. I sell them. And, I think if you're upfront and fair, it's actually good for collectors to turn films over because it allows new people to get access to these prints,
Absolutely. Yeah. That's what always drives us crazy is we'll reach out to the studio. They'll say, yeah, we have one print left, but we're vaulting it. Vaulting it? Like, is this movie not meant to be seen?
Yeah, exactly. It's it's a fine balance. Films that I've sold to archives, that the chances of them being seen by the public in the near future are almost zero, but at least they're being preserved in an environment that they will be available for future generations. Whereas once I go, I'm not sure what's going to happen to all the prints that I've got here. My wife will sell them or my kids will sell them, and that's what I'd expect them to do.
Sure. Well, before we let you go, we don't want to keep you all day. We got to know the 35 millimeter being there and the experience of the drive-in. There is always certain snipes that we play for our pre-show. Do you guys lean into a retro pre-show, or is it all modern trailers?
Every single night, our audience is treated to some vintage Filmac concession trailers. We rotate. I purchased them brand new from Filmac about 30 years ago. And we had them transferred to digital, and that's how we open our programs every night. And I have about 50 of them. I have a mix of Australian and American ones. Some of the Australian ones that the theatre chains use, they're fantastic. Like the US ones, a family at the drive-in, let's visit the snack bar. They have a little song. And one of them was actually shot at a drive-in theatre right near where I grew up. So every time I see it, it brings back great memories of seeing Disney films at the drive-in. And then when I got my driver's license with my mates, we would go, and then later on with the girlfriend. And that was my main drive-in. It was a big twin drive-in theatre, held about 1,600 cars. It was very large. And that's where one of these Visit the Snack Bar commercials was actually shot back in the 1970s. So whenever I see that, it just gives me a warm feeling.
Talk about nostalgia. That's absolutely beautiful. Well, I want to give the guys an opportunity to pick your brain as well. Anything for our main man from Australia, Jeff?
Yeah, David, let me ask you one thing you mentioned earlier, and I kind of got lost track of it in my head. Did you say that you have already sold the drive-in, or you're just considering it at this point?
No, we did. It's already been sold. We put it up for sale. We're currently still trading, and unfortunately, it's been purchased by developers. They are another family company, and they're very sensitive about the drive-in, but their business is building warehouses and factories, and we put it up. We didn't accept an offer. We received many offers in recent years, but we took it to the market, even though we copped some backlash, some harsh feedback from some. But we thought that was the fairest way. And some cinema and drive-in companies did make inquiries, which was hopeful, but they saw the costs the same way we see the costs. And one of the larger companies said, David, how do you make money with these costs of property taxes? I said, yeah, hence why we're selling. That's why. So, yeah, that's the unfortunate story.
That is, it's kind of, are you like month to month now until you have to
Yeah,
go?
we will trade at least until middle of the year. So we'll get some of the better summer US blockbuster releases. We will get to see Fast and Furious 10. We'll get to see Indiana Jones. We'll get a few of these in, but after that, we're not so sure.
Yeah.
How about you, Mark? Any questions for David?
Yeah, I had a couple. One was, seeing the relatively, or not even relatively, the very industrial area that you're located in. Do you have any issues with light pollution from the structures that surround you?
Yeah, great question. Yeah, look, our local city council supposedly has this bylaw where a new business cannot affect the operation of an existing business. So initially, when we had a warehouse built next to us, they put up some floodlights. It affected one of our screens. We contacted the company first. They told us to, I shouldn't swear, should
Kindly fuck off.
Yeah, that's right. And it wasn't kind. So that was all the negotiation we needed. We went to the local city, and a guy came out and he negotiated that their floodlights would come on a time clock after we closed operations, which was a great solution. That happened another couple of times. This is 15 years ago, but then subsequently they haven't gone that hard. They've said, oh, yeah, look, they really need to have their floodlights. It's for security. I'm saying, but it's affecting our business. You can't, it's getting brighter and brighter, and we need it to be dark. So, look, we haven't been pleased with their reaction in recent years. They've just thought it's all too hard, too much confrontation. I say, well, you've either got a law or you haven't. They made us take some signage off the front of our property because they said, that type of signage wasn't permitted for the area. So we took it off. Well, why do we obey the laws and other companies don't? So yeah, that's a big problem, and we're surrounded by warehouses. Every one of them has floodlights, and it's just no good.
Perhaps more positive question. Where's the next closest drive-in theater to you?
Okay, well, there's 3 drive-in theatres located around the city of Greater Melbourne. As I mentioned, it's quite large. It's probably not as big as, say, Philadelphia, but the city and suburban area is just under 5.5 million, but it's spread over a large area. Think freeways. I suppose if it looked most Europe. The center of our city maybe looks like Boston, and the suburban area looks like Los Angeles, if you got that picture.
Right.
And the other 2 drive-ins, luckily, they're located 45 minutes in one direction, and the other drive-ins 45 minutes to an hour drive in another direction. So both of those each have 3 screens. So whilst it's not local for our customers when we close, at least they will have the option of driving to other drive-in theatres, which is good, because as you know today, generally when a drive-in closes, whether it's the US or Australia or elsewhere, the customers don't have any other choice.
Yeah, left abandoned.
Yeah. So one drive-in is owned by a large chain, Village Drive-Ins, who I used to work for. They sold the property some years ago. They're leasing back. So unfortunately, they're facing the same issues as us. They probably will close sometime in the future. The other drive-in theatre is located on land that has different zoning. It's got different permits required. So they can't be built. You can't build apartments or factories or warehouses on their land. It has to remain mostly green. So, a garden centre could open there, but the reality is he doesn't have the high property taxes. So that's Paul at Dramana Drive-In, who we know well, that they've got the best chance of continuing a long time into the future.
That's beautiful. Well, we cannot thank you enough for making the time for us, but we really can't thank you enough for taking this drive-in and breathing new life into it and really representing the Australian drive-in culture to the fullest.
Well, Mark and Virgil and Jeff, thank you so much for the opportunity. Yeah, look, we owe it to you, American brothers, if you like, because without you guys, we wouldn't have had these American-style drive-ins. And I think outside of Canada and Australia, whilst they were all around the world, no one other than Australia, Canada, and the US had them right through every town, every suburban area. Canada had hundreds, we had hundreds, you guys had thousands. So, I think we share a very similar culture in the movies, the cars, and what we see on our drive-ins. So, yeah, we owe you guys a lot.
Well, it's a beautiful thing. And we say it, there's not many things that we can all do together anymore
Yeah,
as a culture.
for a family.
Yep.
Yeah.
And
or a
to
bunch
have,
of mates or friends. Yeah, absolutely.
right. And to have a place like that thrives so beautifully, the amount of memories that you made, the amount of people that you inspired, it for us, it really is fuel to our fire that we're heading in the right direction.
Yeah, look, you guys have done an amazing job. You know, I see what you guys do online. Incredible with the films you program. It's fantastic.
Oh, you're the best.
Thank you. Thank you.
Stay strong, and anything that you need when it comes to your next project, do not be afraid to reach out. We love you.
Well, thank you so much. My next immediate project is to hop on the ride-on mower and start cutting some grass.
That's right. You're open tonight, so we can't.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah, and when we do close, I will be taking a break for some months because 20 years on top of another 20 years of shift work and night work and weekend work, I think I can do with a small vacation or holiday. So.
Oh, absolutely. You deserve it, my friend.
Oh, more importantly, so my family who have suffered along with me. So.
Naturally. Well, I can say it. We're going to be in touch very soon about the film collection because that's constantly what we do is we're looking for that one print that remains out there that we can show people for that once in a lifetime experience.
Let's talk for sure.
Absolutely. All right, my friend, be well. And on that note, Jeff, take it away, my friend.
Ladies and gentlemen, thanks again for coming out tonight to the Mahoning Drive-In Theater. We hope you'll come back and see us again real soon. The exit is on the right-hand side of the screen at the front of the field, and most importantly, have a very safe trip home. Good night and God bless you.